All right, so throughout the morning we have been bringing you rolling coverage on the SABC, reflecting on the life and times of the late Pope Francis, of course, who's set to be laid to rest around 10 a.m. today, Rome time. So this is now available on our various social media platforms at SABC News. Of course, we're also on SABC Plus. We've got our SABC YouTube page, Beyond TV, and our FSN crossings with those reporters around the world in major cities. We also have our radio platforms, really bringing you the latest as it unfolds. As the conversation continues, there you can just see thousands coming out to pay their last respects. That is live visuals on your screens outside the Vatican, where the Pontiff, that funeral is said to be taking place. We know that that's outside St. Peter's Basilica, but the Pontiff, upon his last will, wanted to be buried at the Basilica of St. Mary Major. It's one of his most favorite places, as we heard, places for him to pray. He requested a simple burial. In fact, his grave will be marked by his papal name, Francisca. That burial will be taking place at St. Mary's Major for that private service. Of course, from Sunday, the public is welcome to go and view once again. The 9-day mourning period also underway. As we continue to reflect on his life and times, the impact he's had for South Africa, for Africa, perhaps also the world at large. Being from Argentina, we're going to continue to chat to SABC News international editor Sophie Mokoena, who is in studio here with us. Sophie, good morning, and thank you for joining us once again. We were just looking at, what's transpired, how he's fondly been remembered. The world leaders, over 50, said to be in attendance. Tell us a little bit more about who is set to come, the significance really of what this entails, particularly at a time where geopolitics is obviously shifting, and there are more questions than answers in terms of what the future looks like.
Well, there are many people who will be attending. When you look at people who will be attending, all the regions will be represented. Speaking Africa, the Americas, you know that the Pope was born in Latin America. You look at Asia, you look at Europe, and different islands, the Caribbeans, will be represented. When we look at, perhaps let's start with the president of Argentina, sure, because the Pope was born in Argentina. He's a citizen of Argentina and now the citizen of Rome. That will be the president of Argentina. You also have the Prime Minister of Italy as the host country for the Vatican and where the Pope is currently. We look at the royal families. That would include Prince William representing Great Britain, and on behalf of King Charles, you have King Philip and Queen Matilda of Belgium. And then you also have Spain's King Philip and also Queen Letizia. And when you look at politicians, we have world leaders. That would include the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, in Europe. You have the president of Brazil, the neighbor to Argentina, President Lula. And you also have then in America, the president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, who arrived earlier this morning, our time, late last night, US time. And you know that on his way, we saw lots of messages where he was talking about peace on the continent after that meeting between the foreign affairs ministers of Rwanda and the DRC, linking it to what the Pope spoke about, the first meeting of these two foreign affairs ministers facilitated by America with the quest to ensure that there's peace in the Great Lakes region. That's exactly what the Pope called for. We have the Polish president, you know that this is a neighbor to Russia, and this is a country that is affected due to the war between Ukraine and Russia. The EU Commission president will also be there representing the EU. And you also have the Prime Minister of Britain. He will also be there. We were told that even the president of Ukraine, that is Zelensky, will attend, but we don't know. You would recall when he was in the country, he had to cut short his visit because of the war in Ukraine after Russia attacked Kyiv, the capital city. Even this morning we saw him giving update in terms of the impact of those attacks. On the other hand, we saw the assassination of the general in Russia, and therefore that area is quite volatile, and therefore we don't know whether Zelensky will make it. We know that on the continent, particularly in relation to South Africa, we will be represented by the ambassador in Italy, and the ambassador will represent the president. That is very important because you'd recall that during the week we spoke to the former Deputy President of the Republic, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, who is a Catholic. But what is important is that after finishing her term at the UN Women in New York, at the UN, the Pope appointed her to be part of the team that was advising the Pope about challenging issues around the globe, and they had quite a number of meetings, and they presented proposals in terms of how the Pope can handle or be a voice for the vulnerable and the poor. Then, just before he went to the hospital, on the eve of him addressing an important meeting, he had called a summit where they were going to focus on issues that are related to fair taxation system or fair global financial system, because if countries are losing money, it is the vulnerable that are suffering. Yeah. And he had invited the former South African President Thabo Mbeki to present a paper or a speech or input on illicit financial outflows. The Pope was supposed to open that meeting. Unfortunately, he then had to go to hospital on the same day. But the meeting did continue. The former advisor of the South African President, Mojamku Gumbi, made an input on behalf of the Secretary General. Also, you know that Mojamku Gumbi is an advisor of Antonio Guterres on issues of racism at work. So that important meeting speaks to the work he was doing, even at a very difficult time, because that conference was very, very important. Yeah. And thereafter he went to hospital. He couldn't address the conference. When he came back from hospital, he was at his place, and then we saw him days before the Easters when he went to prisons, when he engaged with people who looked after him, and of course that appearance at the balcony, and also that drive around to see people. And the last person he met is the Vice President of the United States of America, J.D. Vance. Yes. You know the issues with America.
Yes, Sophie, thank you for reminding us of that, because, I mean, to your point about his last message, really focusing on social justice issues and finding lasting solutions, particularly at a time where we're seeing issues between the dynamics unfolding in Russia and the Ukraine, Israel, Gaza as well. I think also just looking at India and Pakistan, his call really for peace, because he was known as the Pope of Peace. Tell us a little bit more about all these world leaders and delegates converging, what this also means at a time like this for the world.
One would hope that they will reflect and look at what he said, his last words in public, where he called for peace, particularly in Gaza. As you know that every morning he used to call a leader of the church in Palestine to get information in terms of the situation on the ground. Much as he was a friend to the Jews, he was also a friend to the Palestinians. Every day, not every week or every month, every day he had to get a report on the ground in terms of what's happening in Palestine. And when there were heavy bombardments, he would come publicly to condemn and call for peace. And even his last message revolved around peace. Therefore, the question is, President Putin, who issued such a glowing tribute to the Pope, and President Zelensky, who indicated that he would want to attend the funeral, will they use this moment to reflect and agree on ceasefire and cessation of hostility? When Zelensky was in the country a few days ago, he made it public, standing next to the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa,
yes,
that Ukraine is ready for the unconditional ceasefire. Let's hear Putin. In the Middle East,
yes,
is Benjamin Netanyahu ready? And in the DRC, Kagame, Tshisekedi, M23, are you ready? And in Sudan, in South Sudan, that call from the Pope.
Yes, and the world is watching with bated breath, of course, to see what follows, who's going to be elected next. Sophie, thank you for that update. Of course, we're going to be with you and our reporters. Leanne and Blaine are also going to be taking over in just a moment to continue that rolling coverage as we edge closer to 10 a.m. when the official funeral of Pope Francis is set to get underway.